A millionaire decided to go home early, and what he saw moved him deeply. Daniel Hayes was known for his strict discipline and impeccable time management. As the CEO of one of Chicago's largest hospitals, his life was measured down to the minute. Board meetings, emergency calls, VIP consultations. His daily schedule left no room for surprises. Since his wife Anna's tragic death in a car accident 5 years ago, Daniel had never allowed himself to waste time on anything unnecessary. He drowned himself in work, partly to avoid facing his grief and partly to ensure that his daughter, Lily, lacked nothing. He provided the best of everything, the finest private school, elite nannies, top-tier doctors. Every morning, his chauffeur dropped Lily off at school. Every afternoon, Daniel reviewed the teacher's notes and texted the nanny detailed instructions about Lily's meals and activities. Everything ran smoothly, like clockwork. His life was a well-oiled machine, until that Thursday afternoon. An important board meeting was suddenly canceled. Daniel glanced at the sleek metal watch on his wrist. 3:30 p.m., more than 2 hours free before his next conference call, a rare gap in an otherwise airtight schedule. He could catch up on reports, reply to a mountain of unread emails. But then a thought slipped into his mind. What if I went to pick Lily up from school today? She was always picked up by the driver, always under someone else's watch. What about spontaneity? What about surprise? The kinds of moments Daniel hadn't allowed himself to have for years. Without fully understanding why, he grabbed his car keys and walked out of his office, leaving his assistant staring after him in confusion. It was a simple decision, or so it seemed. But Daniel had no idea that this choice would change his life forever. As Daniel stepped through the school's front gate, he noticed the curious glances. Not because he was unfamiliar, quite the opposite. His name was etched into plaques across the campus: the science lab, the new library wing, the gymnasium. He was the school's most generous benefactor. But today, he was something else, a father picking up his daughter for the first time. Mr. Hayes? What a surprise! The warm voice came from behind the reception desk. It was Principal Lori Granger, her smile betraying both familiarity and curiosity. Lily's still in the study room, she informed him. She always waits there for the driver. Daniel nodded in thanks and made his way down the quiet hallway. The building felt unfamiliar in its stillness. No school day clamor, just late afternoon sunlight filtering through tall glass windows. As he neared the study room, faint voices reached his ears. Not childish noise, but a calm, patient conversation. A young woman's voice, soft and nurturing, was explaining something. Instinctively, Daniel paused and peeked through the barely ajar door. What he saw stopped him cold. Lily was sitting beside a woman in a simple gray uniform, clearly not a teacher. On the desk were 5th grade math books, colored pens, and pieces of paper with doodled shapes. The woman was speaking with warmth and clarity. "Think of fractions like pizza slices, Lily," she said, pointing at a drawing. "If the whole pizza has 8 pieces and you eat 3, that's 3/8. Lily, usually impatient and easily distracted, was laser-focused, eyes bright with understanding. She laughed. "Oh, so when we multiply fractions, we're really splitting the pizza even smaller. That makes way more sense." Daniel didn't move. He couldn't. His daughter, who once cried in frustration over math homework, was smiling while doing equations. And the woman teaching her? She still had one rubber glove on. A cleaning cart stood beside her chair. She wasn't a certified tutor, not someone from a polished agency. But her eyes held something he hadn't seen in any of the elite tutors he had hired. Genuine care, real passion, patience. "Em, you're amazing," Lily exclaimed, using a nickname spoken with such ease, as if they'd known each other forever. "Em?" Daniel murmured. Just then the woman looked up, and their eyes met. She froze, clearly startled, and stood quickly, fumbling with her gloves, Fear flashed across her face, as though she expected to be scolded, or worse, fired. Lily, oblivious to the tension, ran to her father. "Daddy, what are you doing here so early?" Daniel didn't respond right away. His gaze remained fixed on the woman before him, her hair tied back, no makeup, clothes simple. Yet her eyes held something honest and deeply moving. I was just helping her with some math during my break," the woman stammered. Daniel took a slow breath. A part of him, the one trained by years of structure and professionalism, whispered that this was inappropriate, unplanned, unapproved. But another part, buried deeper, stirred awake. Maybe. This was the most right thing he'd seen in years. The air in the small classroom felt frozen. Lily happily gathered her books, oblivious to the tension between the two adults. Emily avoided Daniel's gaze, her face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes," she began, her voice low but steady. "I know this isn't part of my job. I just saw Lily struggling with her math homework and thought I could help a little. I didn't mean to overstep." Daniel remained silent, his expression softening. "What's your name?" "Emily Carter, sir. I work in the cleaning department. My shift ends at 7. He nodded slightly. "And you were teaching her math?" A shy smile appeared on her lips. "Not really teaching, just explaining. I used to be an elementary school teacher. Before." Her voice faltered, eyes drifting toward the window. "The school I worked for shut down during the pandemic. I lost my job and—" She paused, then sighed. "The bills didn't stop coming. My mother has a heart condition. She needs medication every month. I applied everywhere, but no schools were hiring new teachers back then. So I took the first job I could find, here." Daniel looked at her, not as a hospital director assessing an employee, but as a man seeing another human being. There was no trace of self-pity in her eyes, only quiet dignity and a calm sorrow that spoke louder than words. "You have a teaching degree?" he asked, disbelief flickering in his tone. "Yes, elementary education. These days, the only time I use those skills is in little moments like this, when I help Lily." "Dad," Lily interrupted eagerly, "she explains everything so clearly. I actually like math now." Daniel blinked, caught off guard. He had paid thousands of dollars for professional tutors, yet none of them had ever made his daughter laugh during a math lesson. "Ms. Carter," he said after a thoughtful pause, "thank you for helping Lily. She's lucky to have you." Emily lowered her head, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I just wanted her to believe she could do it, not just in math, but in anything." Daniel nodded slowly. There was something in her tone, a blend of humility and quiet strength, that lingered with him. As he and Lily left the room, Daniel glanced back one last time. Emily was gently stacking papers, carefully folding each one into a worn leather bag. Her movements were slow, precise, and kind. And on her tired face there was a soft, genuine smile, one that Daniel found himself unable to forget. For the first time in years, he felt he had met someone truly remarkable. In the car on the way home, Daniel sat quietly beside Lily and listened as she chattered about the playful pizza examples Em had used to explain fractions. His daughter's small stories stirred a growing curiosity in him, not just about Emily's teaching methods, but about why someone with an education degree would be working as a cleaner. Back at the Hayes residence, Daniel didn't fall into the usual cascade of emails and hospital memos. He went into his study, opened his laptop, then closed it again. The empty armchair opposite his desk seemed to wait for a different kind of decision, one that had little to do with budgets or hospital strategy. Finally, he dialed the number he had gotten from the school office. His heart beat a little faster in an inexplicable mix of caution and clarity. When she answered, Emily's voice came through, plain, slightly trembling. "Hello, this is Emily." "Emily, this is Daniel Hayes," he said. "Could you stay at school for a bit tonight? I'd like to invite you to my home to talk, not about cleaning, about Lily." There was a pause before she asked, "You mean about tutoring her, sir?" "Yes." He offered a short, affirming breath. "I'd like to hire you as Lily's official tutor, 3 times a week after school. I'll pay you 3 times what you earn now, and if you want, the school can adjust your hours so you can keep your position here." On the other end of the line, Emily was stunned into near silence. "You don't have to do that, sir. I only help when I can." Her voice was small but threaded with emotion. "This isn't charity," Daniel said quickly, his voice firm. "It's because Lily needs someone like you, and because you deserve to be paid for the real value you bring. That's all." Emily hesitated, then asked a question that made him pause. "Aren't you worried what people will say? About a hospital director hiring a cleaning staff member to tutor his daughter?" Daniel inhaled slowly. "Of course I am. But my daughter needs someone who reaches her, not a glossy resume. I'm tired of lives lived by script. If something good is happening, I'll do what's right, regardless of what others think." Emily said she needed more time to think. Emily sat at the edge of her bed, her phone still in hand, staring blankly at the dimly lit kitchen. The apartment was small, just her and her mother, with peeling walls and a flickering ceiling light. On the table sat her mother's heart medication, the last few pills left in the bottle. She still couldn't quite believe what had just happened. Daniel Hayes, the most powerful parent at the school, had just offered her a tutoring position, with triple the pay, and, even more surprising, with genuine respect. "Mama," she called softly, stepping into the adjoining room. Mrs. Cecilia, her mother, was reclining in an old armchair, her legs wrapped in a knitted blanket. She looked up, her eyes tired, but full of warmth. "What is it, sweetheart?" Emily told her everything, the math lesson with Lily, the unexpected phone call, the generous offer that both scared and moved her. "I don't know if I should say yes. What if people think I'm trying to take advantage?" Her mother reached for her hand, thin, frail fingers still full of strength. "Did you help that little girl with your whole heart?" "Yes." "Then don't let the fear of what others think stop you from doing what's right. You've been given a chance to return to the work you love. Don't let the past keep you from the future, Emily." She was quiet for a long moment, then nodded, eyes glistening. "I'll say yes." The next morning, Emily arrived at school earlier than usual. Her heart was a mixture of excitement and nerves. The night before, after her mother's quiet wisdom, she had texted Mr. Hayes, "I accept." There were no fireworks, no instant transformation, just an ordinary woman walking through familiar hallways. But for the first time in years, she felt like she was walking toward a real future. From across the hallway, Lily waved brightly. "Miss M, Dad said you're really going to be my tutor. You said yes, didn't you?" Emily smiled, nodding gently. "Yes, I did." Unbeknownst to them, from a far corner of the corridor, Martha Dean, head of the cleaning staff, watched the scene with narrowed eyes. Her gaze hardened as she saw Emily talking to Lily. And even more so when she caught the child's cheerful words. "A tutor? That girl?" Martha muttered, a simmering irritation rising like an old wound ripped open. She didn't know all the details yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Emily Carter was stepping out of line. Martha Dean had worked at St. Clair Preparatory School for 14 years. She knew every corner of the building, every teacher's routine, and the smallest details about her janitorial staff. She didn't like unusual things. And Emily Carter, from her very first day, had always been unusual. She spoke too politely, walked too quietly. Teachers greeted her not with the usual nods or dismissive glances given to cleaning staff, but with respect. That, more than anything, rubbed Martha the wrong way. And now, Emily was chosen to be the private tutor for Mr. Hayes's daughter? Martha heard it through a casual chat in the break room. A young assistant teacher gushing, "Mr. Hayes offered Miss Emily a tutoring position for little Lily. So sweet, right? The kids adore her way of explaining things." Martha stood by the coffee machine, gripping a ceramic mug tight enough to crack it. Sweet? A janitor being hired to tutor a millionaire's daughter? She scoffed. Sweet, in her vocabulary, was code for social climber. From that day forward, Martha started watching more closely. She noted when Emily left the staff lounge, secretly took pictures of her talking with Lily in the hallway. Once, she even stood hidden behind a door and caught Daniel Hayes arriving in person, catching a look exchanged between the two. She saved the images on her phone. They weren't incriminating, but they were enough to plant seeds. And the rumors began. At first, it was soft whispering among a few staff. "She's getting a lot of attention lately." Then came the half-jokes. "Impressive, huh? Floor cleaner to favorite in the blink of an eye." Soon, those who never liked Emily started adding spice. "It's not just her teaching, trust me. Don't be surprised if she gets promoted faster than seasoned staff." Emily heard it. Of course she did. The way people looked at her shifted. Morning greetings came slower, colder. Once the kind soul of the janitor team, she now carried the label of opportunist in others' eyes. And the part that hurt the most was when Lily asked her, "Miss M, why don't the other teachers smile at you anymore?" Emily only smiled and brushed Lily's hair gently. "Maybe they're just tired, sweetheart." But inside, she felt the storm building, and she knew exactly who was darkening the skies. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at St. Clair turned strangely heavy. Emily kept smiling, kept working, kept meeting Lily after school. But she could feel it. Every stare, every whisper, slicing into her pride like 1,000 invisible cuts. Martha, meanwhile, grew quieter, yet her eyes gleamed each time Emily passed by, like someone who had planted a seed and was waiting for the poison to bloom. And then, just as she'd hoped, the real storm arrived. This time, it wasn't just gossip. It was a scandal. 3 days after the whispers began, what Emily feared most finally happened. On Monday morning, a parent posted a photo in the school's online group, Emily stepping into Daniel Hayes's black car, Lily visible in the back seat. The caption was short, but cruel enough to destroy a life. When mopping floors isn't enough, there are other ways to move up. Within hours, the post spread like wildfire. Hundreds of shares, dozens of comments, most of them dripping with malice. Private schools are always full of scandals. The hospital director and the janitor? Straight out of a soap opera. Smart woman knows how to use her opportunities? By noon, the photo had circulated through every parent group and even reached local forums. The name Emily Carter was no longer that of a kind janitor, but the center of a moral scandal. When Emily arrived at school, every pair of eyes turned toward her. The usual morning greetings were gone, replaced by hushed whispers that cut deeper than words. She tried to stay calm, focusing on her routine. But before noon, she was summoned to the principal's office. Principal Estella Green looked at her with a mix of sadness and fatigue. "Emily," she began softly, "the situation is escalating. Parents are pressuring the school board. They believe your relationship with Mr. Hayes is inappropriate." Emily's fingers tightened. "That's not true. I've done nothing wrong. I only teach Lily. Mr. Hayes just drives me home, that's all." "I believe you," Estella sighed, "but I must suspend you from both your cleaning duties and your tutoring position until this matter is resolved. The decision comes from the board." Emily stood still, her breath caught in her throat. Everything she had built, her trust, her job, her chance to teach again, crumbled in an instant. "How long?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Estella said. "A few weeks, maybe longer." That evening, a knock echoed through Emily's hallway. She opened the door, and there he was, not the CEO, not the polished public figure, just a man, shaken, furious, and helpless in the face of injustice. "Emily, I've seen it," he said, voice taut with fury. "I'm going to speak out. To the press, to the parents, to the board, they'll hear the truth." Emily shook her head, her eyes red and tired. "No, Daniel, that will only make it worse. If you defend me publicly, they'll say I'm using you. I can't stand by while they destroy your name." "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't turn this into a war. I just want things to calm down. I can endure it." Daniel stared at her, at the quiet strength in her face, the dignity she somehow still carried, and in that moment he understood. She didn't need a savior. She needed someone who truly believed her. He exhaled deeply. "All right, but I promise you this, Emily. I won't let them write the ending." She smiled faintly, though her heart ached. "Thank you, Daniel. Your faith is enough." That night, as Daniel left, Emily sat by the window, watching the city lights blur through her tears. Somewhere out there, her reputation was being torn apart by lies. But deep inside, she still held onto one fragile truth. That truth itself always finds its way home. As the apartment door clicked shut behind him, Daniel stood in the quiet hallway for a long moment. His conversation with Emily had left him shaken, not just by the injustice she faced, but by her courage in choosing silence to protect him. She didn't ask him to speak out. She didn't want this to become a battle, but that didn't mean Daniel would stand by and do nothing. Driving home, he didn't turn on the radio. He simply thought about every word, every glance, every possibility. Who took the photo? Who spread it? Who had something to gain from tearing Emily down? He was the director of a major hospital, a man trained to search for truth, to make decisions based on facts, not emotions. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel knew. It was time to investigate, not for reputation, but for justice. 3 days after Emily was suspended, in the cold, fluorescent-lit basement of St. Clair's administrative building, Chloe, the quiet in-house IT technician, sat alone before a bank of monitors, working through her usual system checks. It was an ordinary afternoon until she noticed something strange in the access logs. A login from the janitorial department had connected to a personal USB device during office hours, not uncommon. But one of the folders on that drive had synced temporarily with the school's network, revealing several image files pulled from a mobile phone. Among them was a photo she instantly recognized. Emily sitting in Mr. Hayes's car, Lily clearly visible in the back seat. Chloe enlarged the image, checked the metadata, and scanned the access timestamps again. The account name blinked back at her from the screen. M. Dean, Martha Dean. Chloe froze. She didn't consider herself close to anyone at the school. She owed no one anything. But as she stared at that image, she remembered Emily, the woman she had seen wiping desks in the tech room, always polite, always smiling, always bowing slightly when she passed. Something inside Chloe sank. A person like that didn't deserve to be torn apart by malicious rumors. That evening, Chloe arrived unannounced at Daniel Hayes's office at the hospital, clutching her laptop tightly. Daniel was surprised to see her, a young woman with determined eyes and a clear urgency in her posture. "I'm sorry for coming without notice," she began softly. "I'm the IT technician at St. Clair, and I think you need to see this." Daniel invited her in. She opened her laptop, typed quickly, and showed him everything. The login logs, timestamps, untouched photo files, and even a short hallway video clip. of Martha lifting her phone to take a picture in secret. There was no more doubt. The person behind it all was Martha. When Chloe finished, Daniel didn't speak right away. He sat upright, eyes darkening, hands tightening into fists. It wasn't about him. It was about Emily, someone innocent who had carried the weight of falsehoods in silence. "Can you print all of this?" he asked. "I already have," Chloe nodded, "and if necessary, I'm willing to testify." That same night, Emily was called in. She sat in stunned silence as Chloe recounted everything. After a long pause, Emily turned to her and asked gently, "Are you sure you want to step forward? You might face consequences." "I'm not afraid," Chloe replied, her voice calm but firm. "Because if I stay silent now, someday another Emily might suffer the same way." Daniel stood, walking to the window, looking out into the fading city sky. Then he turned back, eyes steady, voice unwavering. "It's time to bring this to light." Chapter. The following morning, during an emergency meeting with the school board and parent representatives, Daniel placed the printed files onto the table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse anyone. But each word he spoke carried weight. Emily Carter was suspended based on a photo and unverified gossip. Today, we're bringing you what should have been asked for from the start: the truth. Chloe presented the technical findings, brief, clear, undeniable. The room fell silent. No one spoke for several moments. Some who had once turned their backs now lowered their eyes. A few board members exchanged uneasy glances. At last, Principal Estella Green spoke, her voice low and deliberate. "We need time to review everything thoroughly, but it's clear we failed to see what truly mattered." Emily said nothing. She simply nodded once. But in her eyes there was no longer fear or shame, only the calm strength of someone who had walked through a storm and was now ready to reclaim her name. The air in the meeting room felt frozen after Chloe finished her presentation. The evidence was undeniable. Martha sat quietly in the corner, her face pale, hands clenched tightly in her lap. All eyes turned toward Emily, the one who, by all rights, should have been angry, who had every reason to demand the harshest form of justice. But when she stood, her gaze was unexpectedly calm. There was no fire in her eyes, no bitterness in her voice. She looked at the board, then turned to Martha. Her voice was soft but steady, cutting through the silence of the room. "I don't want anyone to be destroyed because of one mistake. I only want to reclaim my dignity and continue to live with integrity." She paused, inhaling deeply as though weighing every word. "If Ms. Martha can find the strength to stand up and say the truth, not for me, but for Lily, for the students, and for the woman she still has the chance to become, then I will forgive her." A stunned silence spread across the room. Even Daniel turned to look at Emily, visibly moved. Principal Estella exchanged a few quiet words with the school board, then spoke. "We respect your decision, Emily. However, Ms. Martha's actions were serious. The school will suspend her for 3 months and reassign her to a position with no direct contact with staff or students. If she agrees to make a public apology, her case will not be escalated to the disciplinary council." Martha lowered her head. After a long pause, she nodded quietly. No one pressured her. Perhaps faced with the kindness she never expected to receive, she finally understood this might be her only chance to make things right. The next morning, the school released an official statement on its website and social media platforms. Following an internal investigation, we confirm that the photos circulating involving Ms. Emily Carter were used without proper context and were distributed without authorization. The individual responsible has taken full responsibility. Ms. Emily has been fully exonerated. We sincerely apologize to Ms. Emily and commit to improving our employee protection procedures moving forward. Under the post, hundreds of comments began pouring in, from those who once doubted her, those who had remained silent, Now came apologies, congratulations, and the first signs of change. "I believe the rumors. I feel ashamed now. I'm sorry, Miss Emily. I hope you return to the school. We need people like you." As for Emily, she didn't dwell on the late praise, but she knew trust, once rebuilt with truth and compassion, becomes stronger than anything else. And perhaps the most precious moment came when Lily heard the news that Emily would be returning to school. "Miss M, you really are my superhero," Emily laughed. She wasn't a superhero, just a woman who chose to stand tall when the world expected her to bow her head. 2 weeks after that defining meeting, Emily officially returned to St. Clair. But this time, not as a janitor. She had been appointed as an official teaching assistant in the elementary department, supporting classrooms with students who needed special attention. On her first day back, Emily walked into the school wearing her new uniform, a crisp white blouse, flat shoes, and a name tag that read clearly, "Teaching Assistant, Emily Carter." Morning greetings were no longer hesitant. There were smiles in the halls. Some teachers shook her hand. A few students ran by, shouting, "Miss M is back." And as for Lily, her progress was remarkable. From a girl who once avoided eye contact, she now raised her hand confidently in class, read aloud without stumbling, and smiled more freely. Her growth wasn't just academic, it was rooted in trust. Trust that Emily had helped her rebuild. Daniel noticed the change too. Since everything had passed, he continued to stay in touch with Emily, even though there was no longer a tutoring reason to do so. They occasionally met for coffee, talked about Lily, books, and quiet little things. And slowly, the silences between them became fewer and softer. Daniel had never imagined he could open his heart again after his wife passed away, but each time he saw Emily, strong, composed, kind, he felt something inside him begin to loosen. He hadn't said anything, and Emily wasn't expecting anything either. But sometimes their eyes met in a quiet hallway and lingered just a moment too long, and both of them knew something was beginning, gently, slowly, but undeniably real. June arrived, bringing warm sunlight and the soft, scattered buzz of cicadas echoing across the courtyard of St. Clair. The school year was coming to an end. Emily still came to school every day, still walking with the same gentle steps, the same calm voice, the same kind eyes toward each student she passed. Once a figure of misunderstanding, she had become a quiet symbol of strength, grace, and dignity. Her relationship with Daniel had also become more apparent, not through declarations or public gestures, but in the way he waited for her after school, the coffee left on the bench, the way his eyes always searched for hers in a crowd. Lily had fully blossomed, now a happy, thriving little girl, always holding Emily's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. One Saturday evening, Daniel invited Emily and Lily to a small, cozy restaurant on the edge of town. "Just an end-of-year dinner," he said, "to thank you for everything." Emily didn't suspect a thing. She arrived in a simple dress, her hair falling softly over her shoulders. Lily wore a floral dress, skipping ahead with laughter as they entered. The table was set privately, candles flickering gently, soft piano music playing in the background. Emily looked around, a little surprised, but before she could ask, Daniel knelt down in front of her, holding a small, elegant ring in his hand. "I used to think my heart had closed forever," he said, eyes fixed on hers. "But then you came, with your silence, your kindness, and the way you loved Lily, like she was your own. I don't know what love means anymore, but I know one thing. I don't want to walk through the rest of my life without you." Just then, Lily stepped forward, holding a small crumpled piece of paper with a childish drawing and a message scrawled in bright crayon. "Will you be my mommy?" Emily smiled through her tears. She nodded. No hesitation. No doubt. The three of them embraced beneath the soft golden light. No crowd, no stage, no fireworks, yet everything felt whole. After all the misunderstandings, the pain, and the trials, Emily had finally found something she had almost stopped believing in: a home, a real family.